Hey folks, thank you very much for tuning in. My name's Yellhat, and today is going to mark the introduction of a new series that I'm starting here called Pavlov In Depth, where we go over all the numbers, stats, and quirks of each weapon in Pavlov VR. With the recent World War II update, I figured it'd be appropriate to start with the new weapons that were introduced and then work our way to the original weapons in Pavlov. With that, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about this, the MG42. Arguably one of the most devastating machine guns ever made, the MG42, or Maschinengewehr 1942, fired the 7.92 by 57mm cartridge that was common of all German rifles at the time. It did so at an astonishing fire rate of 1,500 rounds a minute, or 25 rounds a second. In Pavlov VR, the weapon is undoubtedly the most powerful World War II weapon that was introduced. But is it the best? In order to understand that, we need to look at some stats. These stats include damage, recoil, fire rate, time to kill, and a few more that will be explained as we go along. So, let's start with the obvious one, damage. The MG42 has a base damage number of 20. With the standard player health being 100, this means that the MG42 takes 5 shots to the body to kill. Some weapons have a leg damage and an arm damage reduction if you hit a player in the legs or arms. The MG42 does not have this at all, and will remain a 5-hit kill even if you hit all leg shots or arm shots. To the head, the MG42 is a 1-hit kill to a player without a helmet, which is pretty much in line with every weapon in Pavlov VR, but there's more factors to this than just hitting body shots to an opponent with no armor. With this, we need to very briefly go over how armor and helmets are factored in. Both armor and helmets have 100 points of damage that they can take before they are stripped off, and each weapon in Pavlov does a specific amount of damage to a player's armor or helmet based on where they're shot. This, as you would guess, will be referred to as armor damage and helmet damage. In addition to this, there are values that will label as armor penetration and helmet penetration that dictate what percent of health damage is applied to the player if they are shot in the armor or helmet. This brief amount of information will at least allow us to understand the basics, but in a future video, I'm going to cover how armor and helmets work in more detail. Back to the MG42, the armor damage value of this weapon is 60, meaning that it takes 2 shots from the weapon to strip a player's armor, since the armor has 100 points of damage that it can take. The armor penetration value of this weapon is 100%, meaning that even with armor, the MG42 will still do 20 damage to the body. The MG42 has a helmet damage value of 100, meaning that it will take a player's helmet off in one hit. The helmet penetration value, however, is 75%. This means that a full health player with a helmet, if shot in the head once, will take 75 points of health damage, as opposed to being instantly killed. So, in short, with no helmet, the MG42 is a 1-hit kill to the head, and with a helmet, it's a 2-hit kill to the head. Where the MG42 really shines is its fire rate and its time to kill. The MG42 in-game has a fire rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, making it the fastest firing weapon of the World War II update. This, coupled with its damage, means that it has an effective body shot time to kill of 250 milliseconds, which is the fastest time to kill compared to all the other World War II weapons. The MG42 isn't all sunshine and rainbows, however. Where it struggles is its recoil, so let's have a look at its recoil pattern. So as you can see, as it climbs to its peak, there's a good amount of horizontal recoil to compensate for, in addition to the massive vertical recoil. Here's a pro tip though, watch what happens to the recoil when I crouch in real life. Look how much less horizontal recoil there is to deal with. This is because the MG42 gets an accuracy bonus while crouching, much like the standard LMG. Before we get to the part where I talk about how to use the weapon, there's a couple more stats to cover. The MG42 has a magazine size of 50 rounds, which, considering its fire rate, really isn't that much. You'll be blowing through magazines quite often. Each weapon has a bullet velocity value, since bullets in Pavlov are objects or projectiles, not hit scans. This means that at longer distances you'll have to lead your shots ever so slightly. The MG42's bullet velocity is in line with many of the other ARs and LMGs in the game, sitting at 2,312 FPS. Now, let's get to how to actually use the weapon and my personal opinion on it. And to start this off, we're going to talk about how to reload the weapon. The MG42's empty reload and regular reload share the same process. First, lift the cover on the top with your finger grip button. Next, toss the mag and grab one from your pouch. Place it on the side of the gun with this orientation. Then drag the belt onto the chamber. After that, close the top, and then finally rack the charge handle on the right side. From the stats and just playing it with a bunch for this video, there's no doubt at all that the MG42 is one of the best weapons that came out with the World War II update. It has the highest DPS of any of the World War II weapons, and its vertical recoil isn't too hard to control with a little bit of practice. The MG42 is best used at close range, but it can even be used at long ranges if you do short 4 to 5 round bursts with it. It's excellent for providing suppressing fire and for catching enemies that dare try to cross in the open. You can even, in some instances, get away with doing larger bursts at long range if you're crouching, due to the accuracy bonus that we talked about earlier. Up close, granted you get the first shot, you're most likely going to win your gunfight just due to the sheer DPS this weapon provides. Spraying down multiple enemies is pretty easy with this weapon too, granted you can control the full auto. The MG42 does have its cons though. Like I said, the recoil is pretty harsh if you're new to the weapon, and can get out of control quite easy unless you're bursting. The irons aren't that bad to use, but they can be a little bit hard to use at long ranges. As you would expect with an LMG, your movement gets slowed by quite a bit, and this is especially noticeable when you're aiming down the sights of the weapon. And lastly, you'll be reloading a lot, and I mean a lot, so like every weapon, get used to reloading this thing quick. Overall, the MG42, even with its flaws, is a top tier weapon, and in the right hands is a deadly weapon to go up against. Personally, I do think this weapon might go through some balancing changes in the future, but honestly, we'll have to wait and see with that one. With all that said, that's going to be it for this one, folks. If there were any stats that you didn't see covered that you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what weapon you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you learned something useful from this video. If you did, and if you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with when I upload. Be sure to also check out my social links in the description below. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take it easy.